Welcome back, everyone, to episode 6. Today we have Bolun with us. Bolun, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so first of all, today we're going to be speaking a lot about your thoughts on AI. How are you using AI and what has changed in the past 5 years? Why this last question of what has changed in the past 5 years? Because Bolun, let the audience know what happened about 3-4 years ago, and that might be one of the reasons why we brought you on to the podcast.
Three, 4 years ago, I sold my last company, Zogo. That company I actually started, which is so crazy to think, I started like 7 years ago, right, when I was 19. And, the way we built it was, very much the traditional way, right, there was no AI, obviously, back in the day. Everything was very manual. And our app was around financial literacy, right? So I remember we literally hired an army of people, right, from my college to write the financial literacy content on the platform. But now, obviously, with AI, like things are very, very different. So I've been very intrigued with what's been happening in the past few years.
Amazing. So it's been what, 3 years now that you took some sort of rest time to disconnect? What happened?
Yeah, I tried to recenter myself because it was a very intense 3 years when I was doing Zogo. I was, doing school at the same time as running the company. So I just took some time off to like travel. Like I went to a bunch of places this past few years to reflect on what I want to do next.
Nice. And what is it that you want to do next? Is there something that you're interested in as of today?
Yeah, I'm always very interested in obviously entrepreneurship, right? Like that's been, ever since I attended a entrepreneurship summer camp in high school, I've been addicted to this idea that anyone could build something on their own and be able to take their vision and bring it to life, right? So I'm very, very fascinated by it. And obviously now AI is changing everything around entrepreneurships. So I think probably somewhere around there.
Okay, you touched upon a topic that we like to talk about. And of course, since the podcast is called the Agentic Project, maybe we're gonna stick to that line. Have you been playing around with AI lately? Are you yourself involved with AI? Are you
Mhm.
using any tools? Are you technical by the way?
No, not technical at all, right? I'm super non-technical, and I've been using obviously Lovable and all these vibe coding tools. Um, and I think they're great, right? They're awesome. Like I've tried it, and it builds like this basic kind of beautiful, actually not even basic, beautiful looking front end, but it's still very difficult for me to take it all the way through, right, to the finish line of the project. So that's been a little interesting. And then other things I've tried, obviously tried Clay, some of these go-to-market stuff as well. That are pretty interesting as well. And it's like you kind of take it like 80% of the way there, and then the last 20% is like you kind of need to be a pro, be able to figure them out and take full advantage of it. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think is the number one mistake people do when vibe coding?
I think people think too much that it actually is gonna build a production ready app for them. Like I think it's great for prototyping and for like in my head it is an amazing like clickable Figma, right? Is how I see it at least for now. Um, and I even tested it, right? Was one of the idea that I had. Um, when I actually deployed it to customers, actual customers, the vibe coding thing just fell apart, right? Because it's not reliable. It's like sometimes people could sign up and sometimes someone has a weird email maybe, and then it's like a corporate email or whatever, and then it like didn't let them sign up, right? And when you're launching to like production customer, paying customers, sometimes some of these mistakes could be a little silly, right? And people are just like, what the fuck? Why is it not working?
Yeah, yeah. We've heard that from different people that we've had on the podcast actually.
Mm.
So I like to kind of look back and your like past experience or whatever is going on now. Do you think that something has changed in the past 5 years of how to build a SaaS and how to make it to product market fit compared to how you did it with Zogo and how you would do it today? What are the differences of how to scale a SaaS and how to come up with a SaaS?
I think I think the fundamental thing about building a business hasn't changed, right? It's about getting paying customers to who want to use your products. Very simple. Um, how do you find these people? You can probably find them a little faster now with AI, right? But I wouldn't say the fundamentals of business have changed. I think AI just accelerates the, the process. But if you're accelerating the wrong thing, then it also becomes a problem. So like I see a lot of people now vibe coding, right? That's great, but most people don't actually take it like all the way through. Then, when you're vibe coding, it's like playing a video game in a way, right? It's not actually building something, in my opinion. So, because it makes building so much easier, not building a tech product. It's like so many people are doing more of it. But I would argue a lot of the time, right? You don't want to do too much of it because it's about taking what you built and talk to customers, right? Um, that's my biggest 2 cents.
And when you are at a point where it's so easy to build, not so easy, but it got a lot easier to build a product, like the technical side of the product, where now it has become pretty difficult, something that it was given us something easier like 5 years ago, which is to sell and to get those first paying clients. Since everyone is building products, there's a lot of people selling a lot of random BS products and SaaS and whatever. How has that changed when it comes to getting like people to talk to you, getting people's attention? Because in the end, they are being like thrown at, like they're being thrown products every day. Their inboxes are full. Their LinkedIn DMs are full with people selling stuff. Do you do that outreach or that getting those first clients any different as you did it 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think I would. I still believe the first few clients are the easiest when they're warm intro, right? They're not like these cold outreach,
Yeah.
like, I always believe that. And so I don't think that will change. I think that from that first few clients to the scaling part, that probably will change, right? My biggest problem, right, is like kind of like you said, if the AI keep going like this, like how do you even know? I mean, which one is like who is actually having, it's just a lot of spamming, right? Basically. And spamming today might still work a little bit, but then at some point it's just gonna, because I've experienced this firsthand growing up in China, right? I remember when I was younger, when I was in China, there was like, the apps were pretty clear, pretty clean, whatever. Last year I went back home, I downloaded these apps, right? I mean because labors are cheap, right, in China, so it's like it's kind of like AI in a way, right? That have been doing it for a long time, and it's just like you don't trust any ratings, you don't trust any ratings in China, right? Because it's just like you never know, like there might just all be fake people that are doing it. So you ended up trusting your friends way more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Good point, actually. And something that along these lines, we've been saying how anyone can build a SaaS or whatever, or how even businesses or business owners can start to use vibe coding tools to build their own internal custom products. So we've read around LinkedIn and social media that SaaS is dead. Is that actually true? Is SaaS really dead?
I think when people say these very like things are dead and like all that, I just like, I mean, people also say developers are no longer needed. Like, look around, like you still need developers. You can't just like vibe code something. Most people don't have the stamina. I mean, I'm sure if you really like sit down and learn Lovable and like learn in and outs of it, you can do it. But like most people just don't have the stamina to do it, right? So you still need, I think, will SaaS be dead? Like maybe the high valuation SaaS will be dead, but I still think there will be some SaaS laying around here and there that, just provide convenience to people, right? And I don't think it's anything is dead or like, It's just, it might be shifted to a different way of seeing it. So.
Yeah. Now that you were mentioning about shifting, the other day I came across a Reddit user that was complaining that he had to pivot his software development agency towards a marketing agency because AI had basically killed his business. I guess this guy was doing more MVP products for his clients. And as you were saying, nowadays building an MVP, it's easy. The hardest part is to build something that is production ready, right? So the same way that some business models are starting to disappear, do you see, and especially with this new vibe coding era, new business models coming in? Do you see any business model that it's promising that will be enabled in this new era?
Any new what? Sorry,
any new business model?
Oh, new business model. I mean, I think that there's a lot of interesting new business model, but I always like the outcome-based things, right? Because I always like to pay. Like, okay, I'll give you an example for selling, like for hiring salespeople as well, right? I never like to pay base salary. Obviously, I would love to pay as high of a commission as possible, right? For someone to get, because I make money, they make money, everyone's happy, right? But if you think about each employee at a company as a SaaS, right? Because you're basically paying a monthly subscription to these people, right? Like, why would I want to do that if I can just pay for the outcome of what I'm looking to achieve for my business? Obviously, I'd be so much more down to do that, right, than paying a monthly subscription to a person. But, I do think a human being also come with its other advantage that are not just outcome based, right? It's like the community, people likes to feel like they're surrounded other people, right? There's a lot of like human stuff in there as well. But I think overall it's just like, this switch to like the outcome based part, I'm like a big fan of that. Yeah.
Now that you were mentioning this,
go ahead, Dani.
Now that you were mentioning this, the importance of still having humans working, right? And you cannot build 100% agent processes. It is true though that at least some experts say that the trend is that more and more you will have these, it's called agent boss profiles. So these people that are basically managing a couple of agents. So instead of having a team of 10 people, you would instead have a team of 2 guys managing 8 agents, for example. Is this a trend that you also think it's going to happen, or what's your take on this?
I think it will happen for sure, and I think the people who are managing the agents, right, are like probably not gonna be full time either at the company. I think there's this huge shift of people are gonna be more and more like their own contractor. That are like I always think it's really stupid, right? Because like it's like you're a real estate agent. I don't know how it works in Spain, but you're a real estate agent. You can sell any house you want in a neighborhood, right? In a city or in the world sometimes. But if you like right now, like let's say these salespeople, right, working at a company, they can only sell the products at that company, even though they know the customers that are like the banks or they know the insurance or whatever. They can only sell one company's product. Like they don't need to, I think people are gonna start to realize like, hey, I should be doing because I can do things a lot faster now as agent. I could be doing 2-3 jobs at the same time versus just one job, right?
Interesting. So, does this mean that we're gonna see a spike on freelancers, on people quitting and becoming freelancers in Spain? That like freelancing concept, it has its good side and bad side as in every country, because they rip you off here, the government rips you off. But well, that's a different topic that we're not gonna get involved in. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that means I've heard and read about it, that actually freelancing is becoming, we're starting to see a lot more people actually quitting and becoming freelancers because of that same thing, because they see that they can actually make more money with different projects at a time than with just working at one company. So Which this leads me to the point where now as a founder, you have to be able to stay up to date with whatever is going on in terms of all this technology and like other companies integrating AI and trying to have your team as optimized as possible. You also want to encourage employees to be working for you because you still need the top tier, the talent to like retain that talent in your company. So what would you say is the most important skill that a founder needs right now to keep growing their company?
That's a really good question. Right? I think it also depends on the different products that or different
Hmm.
companies you're building. I think just the ability to adapt really quickly. I've always think that's like the number one thing because you're gonna get a lot of signals, right, everywhere. And how are you able to quickly pivot and quickly learn from the, you know, the lessons every day? But then also don't pivot too much, right? Because you also have to have
Hmm.
determinations on what you want to do. So that balance is like I think the most difficult one as a founder to like figure out. And I've like struggled with it right for Zogo and then and eventually like pivoted and that was like a difficult decision right to pivot to something completely different than when you started. And yeah, I think
Can you
that's going to
elaborate?
be the most important.
Can you elaborate a bit more on your personal experience of pivoting? So, because I do agree that this is one of the most difficult things, right? When it's time to pivot and when it's time to persevere, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult to know when it's time to do the correct thing. So, for those that are listening to us, what piece of advice would you give them?
Mm. I think, you know, I think it's really hard to say when to pivot and when to not pivot. By the way, almost like you have to listen to your gut and your intuition, and then be able to like have confidence in your intuition, right? Because a lot of the time, data doesn't tell the best story at the early days. It's really strange. Like the data will say one thing, and by the way, your customer might even tell you something that they want that they don't actually want. They want something else, but they just don't know that that's what they want yet. So I think it's just like a really weird dynamic early on to get it right. There's really no good way of like it's more like an art than a science.
So, what was the pivot that you did? What were you doing before with Zogo, and what were you doing after the pivot?
Well, before the pivot, we were a tin debit card company. So we were issuing we're trying to issue tin debit card and parents can set up allowance for the kids. And then we pivoted really hard to, what you know today is like the Duolingo for financial literacy, which is a B2B white label and B2B partnership with all the banks, right? And a lot of that pivot was like so difficult because you can imagine like a tin debit card is such a cool thing, right? Like everyone look at it and be like, whoa, that's so sexy. But if you really talk to the customers, which in my case, I was talking to all the banks, right, that were the banks and credit unions that were our customers, they don't want a tin debit card. All they care about is some ways to engage younger people, right? So tin debit card is actually a really difficult way to engage younger people because it requires the parents, it requires a lot of stuff, right? You look around today, like when we started Zogo, there was probably 4 or 5 tin debit card companies that popped up, raised hundreds of millions of dollars. I can't even like it was the hottest thing like ever. Like people were like, this is the future. They're all no one talks about them anymore. They're done, right? Because it's they're funded by the VCs, right? They didn't really look at their customers and realistically kind of figure out the business model, I guess. Um, so
Nice. And so I guess we've covered pretty much everything that we wanted to cover. We like to close with some random question. This one is not off. It can be off topic, but maybe not. Is if they give you right now 15 million US dollars to invest in something, what would you put it in? It can
15
be an
million.
industry, it can be specifics, it can be specific startup.
Mm.
What would it be?
If it's 15, I'll probably put it in real estate. Yeah.
Real estate?
Yeah, I would
Okay,
probably put it in real
interesting.
estate. I just like I think a lot of other things are changing so much. It's hard to
Hmm.
um yeah, probably real estate.
Amazing. Anything else, Danny?
Yeah, actually, if you could wake up tomorrow with a new skill, what would this skill be?
Mm. Mm. Probably coding, to be honest. I always wish that I know it. And it's so crazy that I'm so not technical and I'm like building tech companies.
Mm.
But yeah, probably coding.
Okay, as a non-developer, how do you, when you start, someone that is a non-developer that has their own company or feels really dependent on on another technical team or technical person or whatever, what is your approach on the relationship with that other technical side? Like, do you like being on top of things? Do you have to find a CTO to fully rely on? Do you hire an external team of developers? What's the best way or the most, I guess, safe way to do so?
Yeah, I think finding one person is the best way to do it. One reliable person. Don't, branch out too much. Definitely don't find a dev shop. Definitely don't find a dev. And just, keep it lean and focused.
You have a very interesting profile, and you started at Zogo when you were 19 years old. So for those entrepreneurs that are also starting and are young, how do you manage to get your first clients, especially when we're speaking about these corporate clients, like in the example of Zogo, these clients were banks. So for what do you think is
It's
the best way
hustling.
to?
I mean, it's hustling, it's making friends with random strangers that you never know. When you're running a business, you never know who is gonna get you to places. And sometimes the most random people just come out of nowhere and they give you a lifeline, right? And then for us, the first client was literally at this like random conference I got invited to speak at, and that kind of got us on the map a little bit. So
So
you
you
just never
spoke in
know. You
a,
just have to,
so in this case, you spoke in a conference without having still clients, and this brought you the first client.
yes, yes.
Cool.